In these videos, I will be covering adding CSS to your website. The first thing that I'm going to do is select a color palette. And I'm going to brush over what I'm doing rather quickly, but just want you to be aware that if you go to the Prof. Steve G website and you go under Software Help, Illustrator, Coloring Work, you'll find a more in-depth instructions on how to do the color work in Illustrator and the theory that goes behind it. And I also highly suggest that you click on this link and read the basics of color theory. And keep in mind, as a designer, you need to know a lot about color. So the more you can read about it, the better. So I just opened up Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to go File, New, and then under Profile, what I want to do is go to basic. Well, actually, let's go to web. That'll select RGB for us. And then let's just pick, really doesn't matter. But yeah, let's just pick this middle size. Again, it really doesn't matter. We just want to get an area to start experimenting with some colors. And just to make sure we're all looking at the same stuff, let's go up to the top right here. Make sure that this says Essentials. If it says anything else, just use the drop down, pick Essentials. If it's all messed up, then go to Reset Essentials, and then that way your work site and mine will look the same. I'm just going to click right here to tuck that in there, and then I'm just going to come up here, grab the rectangle tool, which may be shown as any one of these tools here. But I'm going to click the drop down, select the rectangle tool, and then I am going to bring the stroke forward, hit the none option, bring the fill forward, double click on it, and then I'm going to search for a color that I want to work with. So what I suggest you do is you build a color palette as I build mine. So I use this slider here to select the overall hue, and let's say I want something in the red range. Then I use my cursor to select whether I want a real desaturated color, a real saturated color, a real bright color, or a real dark color. So I'm going to go somewhere over in here, I think, and I can keep clicking, and you see up here it changes as to what color I have. So what I'm doing is just picking a starting color to go by. I click OK. I now have the color there, and what I'll do is I'll take the rectangle tool and I'll just draw out a rectangle. Now what I'm going to do is come over here, and I want to jump the color options out, and I want to select color guide. I want to make sure that the color over here is set to the base color that I just made. If for some reason it was set to anything else, just make sure that you click on that color to bring it to the forefront of the colors, and that should be the color that you're set to. Now the next thing that we need to do is pick a theme that we want to work with, meaning a harmony rule. Now I'm going to ask you right on the grade sheet, what is your color palette? And you're going to tell us when you present the website. So I don't want to just hear, unprofessional talk about color. I want to know if it's a complementary color palette. I want to know if it's a split complementary, a left complementary, analogous, what have you. So look at some of these different color options. And in fact, for the assignment, you only have a couple choices, so make sure you read on the grade sheet what they are. One, complementary is definitely one. Split complementary is definitely one. I'm going to select split complementary, so that dials in split complementary. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click Edit Colors, and I can play with this color wheel and shift where I started a little bit. And it'll show you the three colors here. So one thing, because it's a website, I know that I definitely need to get a bit of contrast in there. And since I started with a real dark color, I may may not get it on just the regular versions, but with the tints and hues, that's probably where it's going to help me dial them in a little bit better. So yeah, that's probably as good as I'm going to get that there. I click OK. Ask me if I want to save it, and I do. And now it builds out the colors here. And I definitely want to be looking at tints and shades here. If you're not seeing tints and shades, go to this drop-down menu and select tints and shades. So if you had something like that, select tints and shades. And then what we want to do is put these colors inside of the swatches. So I'm going to open up the swatches, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything that's in here right now just to make it a lot cleaner by selecting the first color bar. In fact, I'll go right after white and black because it's nice to have white and black in there. Click that, hold down the shift key, click there, click on the trash can. Yes, I want to delete those. And go back to my color guide. And you can see that every time you click on a different swatch, this thing likes to change. So you really have to keep an eye on what the base color is set to. So I click back over here, set the base color to that, go back, pick the color theory that I want. There we go. And now it's set to the right one. It's very fussy, but just really keep an eye on that. Make sure that it does get set to the color that you expect and that you see it not only here, but also as the first color here. Set your rule, and then what you want to do is click on the very far left, shift click on the very far right, and then click this little icon down here. When you do that, it puts your colors in the swatches, which then you don't have to be so concerned about what the color guide says because you now have these swatches. So now what we're going to do is build a little simple mock-up website. All we need is maybe a couple color bars and some text in there. So what I'll do is I'll cover this whole area, the back of the website, just by extending this rectangle. And if you're really not familiar with Adobe Illustrator, just follow exactly what I'm doing. I'm selecting this rectangle with this selection tool. I get these handlebars around it, and then I just click along one of the boxes and drag, and I can extend this to fill this out. So now I'm going to pick what I think is going to be my background color. And what I envision is me using these first two colors for text, and this last one is the background. So I really want a lot of contrast there. That may not even be enough, but we'll try it for now. Then what we'll do is we'll put some text in here, and a quick way to do that is just go out to the website lipsum.com, and then you go down to this section here to say how many paragraphs of text you want to create, and then click generate, and it'll make some nonsense or what's known as a lorem ipsum text for you, and then you just copy that. And actually all I need is just one paragraph. Command C to copy, go back into here, draw out, grab the text tool. So you want just the regular type tool from that selection of tools available. Click and drag, Command V, paste that in there, and then let's go to 16 points. And let's pick a font that's a probable website one like Helvetica or Verdania. Hit H here and go to Helvetica. Then, while that's selected, or if you lost the selection, just click and drag with the text tool and then select your most probable choice for your text. Now, if you go too far over here, it just looks black. So we do want to make sure that we can see some color difference in there, but we definitely want it on the dark side. So that doesn't look too bad. Then let's put in some text that might represent like a header. So I'll just grab the text tool, and this time instead of clicking and dragging, I'm just going to click, and then I'm keep Helvetica, and then I'll double the size, like maybe go up to 24, 36 or something like that, and then I'll just put example header. We'll swipe across that to select it, and then we'll choose the other likely color. So as a designer, what you need to do is keep experimenting here until you meet the objective. One of the important design considerations is what kind of hierarchy have you achieved? And hierarchy is just a visual ordering of how we as the viewer of your website see things. So typically the header is going to be more important because it's announcing a new topic, and then the text that's under it would be less important. So don't make the beginner's mistake of taking your text and picking a brighter or more attention grabbing color than the headline, because now we're not sure what we're supposed to look at first. I mean, we know common sense wise, but a good designer makes it very, very obvious. So keep flip-flopping around with these colors, or your colors, until you get something that makes sense. We also may need a little more contrast between the background and the text. So that would mean making one darker and making one lighter. Now if we go much darker than this, it may not look like green anymore. So we could try making the background lighter, but you can see when I select the background, I have the lightest color already. But a little trick that we can do here is just double click on the fill color, bring up this option here, and instead of just randomly picking a different color, we'll only increase the brightness. So I'll swap my cursor across here, I'll hit the up arrow, and I may even want to go all the way to the top. I still have some color. In fact, you can tell by the build here and here that there is still some color in there, but it's just very much brighter now. When I click OK, that becomes brighter, and then so I don't lose that color, I may want to go ahead and add it to my my swatches, and I'll just go to the drop down here and select new swatch, and then I could give it a name if I want to, click OK, and then when I go into the swatches panel here, there it is up there, and I could make this larger and then just drag that into a spot that's more appropriate, like as the very brightest color. Well, okay. There we go. Just had to drag it to the envelope or the folder there. And so there is my additional color that I have for it. Now it looks like, everything has an effect on everything, so I may want to play around with it even a little more yet. Now that you've done all that design work, it's time to start thinking about CSS. And what we need to do is make sure that we have these colors. So click on all three of the items, go over to the fill icon over here, double click. We're going to be using the hexadecimal colors, so I'm just going to swipe across here, Command C to copy. I'm going to find a document that I can paste this on, and I'll give these a name, and then Command V to paste that color in. Maybe even precede it by the pound sign just so that it's even more obvious what it is, and I'll do that for the other two colors. And your requirement will be to do two things. One, build a website, well, the same website with my colors and with your colors. And I'll explain that later, but for now, build it with my colors, so definitely follow along with what I'm doing here. I'll just call this one background light. But also build your own color palette that's nothing like mine, that's very different, still effective, still very visual, enough contrast for reading and everything, very pleasing to the eye, and definitely follows one of the color rules listed on the grade sheet. And then in the next video, we'll go ahead and we'll start talking about how we proceed with the project, the HTML part and the CSS.